Hands down, the thing I get asked most often as a running coach is how much should I run a week in terms of miles or kilometers? And the easy answer is, there's no easy answer, because here's the thing, we look at lots of other runners maybe doing more than us and we think, well, why am I not doing that? It's because we don't know their background, we don't know their age, experience level, injury history, nothing. So here's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to give you a load of things that you might want to consider in order to determine how much you should be running a week in terms of volume. And do me a favour, subscribe to the channel, hit that subscribe button right now. Trying to get to 100k before my birthday, which is in about 3 months. So come on, make it happen, help me out. But before we even think about the things we've got to consider, we need to think about why. And when I say why, you could be forgiven for thinking, well, hang on a second, I'm just running a 5k. Why would I even need to do any volume at all? I could just run a couple of hard 5ks in a week, jobs are good. And well, yes, you actually could do that, but you're probably not getting the best out of yourself, because what we're talking about first is the reason that we do run volume or distance in the weeks is because we need to build our aerobic base. And you've either got a very firm grasp of this or you've never heard of it before. Let me demonstrate. I like to think of the aerobic base as the base of a pyramid. Now, if we have a small base of a pyramid, then you can't really put anything big like speed work on top. In fact, it ends up looking like a Christmas tree. It is in essence the platform that we need for all of the things that happen in the body, so that we can put all the frilly, faster stuff on top. So the bigger our base or the bigger our platform, then the more we can put on top of that. So if we had a nice big base like this, then we can also put a lot more on top like this. And the base is built from primarily doing miles, kilometers, easy work, like conversational pace, should be able to breathe through your nose sometimes, really not stressful. But that's the way you build the aerobic base. But after the why, you got to think about the how, as in what are the factors contributing to your training, negatively and positively, that you need to be aware of before you can really decide how much you need to run in a week. And I'd say, loosely, there are probably 8. All right, so let's run you through them as quickly as possible. But the first thing you need to think of, and this is going to sound completely obvious, is what is your target race distance? Because even elites training for 5Ks don't need to run as much as elites training for marathons. So target race distance is the first thing that you need to consider before anything else. So welcome to the inside of my brain, just here. And as you can see, I've created a kind of continuum, because this is how my brain thinks. And all of the 8 points that we're going to talk about, all of the 8 considerations in terms of how much we run in a week, will go on here, somewhere on the continuum, that will build an overall picture in terms of my overall training volume. And by the way, I realise when I'm writing green on the post-it notes and then putting them on the wall, you can't see them, so I've changed tack. So let's talk about target race distance. Now, I usually, training for marathons, would therefore have to be on the higher end of the volume scale, so we're going to put that one there. And after that, you need to look at your age, because let's face it, the older you get, as much as I don't like it, the more I'm having to think about things like my recovery, how many miles or kilometers I can run in a week, generally how much can my legs take. So age, sadly, is also a contributing factor. Okay, age. I'm not super old, nor am I super young. Probably somewhere in the middle at 44, 45 this year. Let's put myself in the middle of the spectrum here. Then on top of age, it's what are you in it for, really? Are you racing so that you can be at the pointy end, at the very top? Do you want to compete, or are you racing, or are you just training for the pure joy? Do you want to complete? And they're not mutually exclusive, I'm not saying that. This might have quite a big bearing on your training volume. Now, when it comes to compete or complete, I'm not in a place where I'm that fussed about either, but I would say when I am doing races, it is nice for me to be at the punchy end, at least of my age groups. So I'm going to say I'm on the higher end of compete or complete without being fully this way. What's your injury history? Because if you're one of the lucky ones who seems to manage to avoid injury, then you probably can absorb more volume than most. But if you're like me, and you're held together by fairy dust and wishes, then you need to adjust your training accordingly. You benefit more from consistency anyway, so keeping a focus on staying in the game at all costs is key. Injury is the enemy, so plan based on your history. Now, injury history is an interesting one because I have quite a storied past with injury, so I'm certainly on the lower end, sadly. For this one, I have to be really careful about my training volume in order to get me through my marathon blocks, so I'm going down there. And actually, experience level is a really important one. As I was researching this very video, I looked back just out of interest on my previous experience and what I was doing all the way through, at least since I've started logging all of my runs, and it was really interesting. I'm going to show you right now. You can see that from 2013, so this is 11 years of training, from 2013 to 2024, my volume goes gradually up. Now, it's not a really linear curve, but as you can see, it really does go up as we go. And that's over 11 years. So what I'm trying to say is that if you're a newer runner, then you can't just jump into the high volumes. You have to build yourself up over a long period of time. Oh, hello, Winnie. You have to build yourself up over a long period of time. I started running every other day on an undulating plan, built to 4 days a week, then 5, and have done 6, have even done months where I've run every day. So experience is another one that you've got to think about before you make your volume decision. Now, in terms of experience, that one I can put myself right up here because I've been running pretty much my entire life. I've been a coach for 20 years, and so therefore I kind of, although I'm still learning, definitely at the higher end of the experience spectrum. Another really important factor is what is your willingness to do the other stuff. And I'm actually not just limiting that to strength and conditioning work. I'm talking about other stuff like sleep. I'm talking about other stuff like nutrition. I'm talking about all of the things around running that enhance your running, but you have to be willing and committed to these things. And if you're not, then you need to be thinking about the lower end of your suggested mileage. So, your willingness to do other bits is crucial to how much you're going to be running. This one's an interesting one. The willingness to do other stuff. Let's say, could be better, but I'm alright with it. Life is perhaps something we underestimate. The weekly volume should, to a certain extent, be dictated by how busy of a life outside of running that we have. Most of us have got hectic jobs, families, or other commitments, so making sure your training doesn't tip you over the edge is absolutely crucial. We're constantly trying to evaluate and get it right because the dangers of overdoing it are very costly. So make it fit in with your life for the absolute best results. Yeah, this is the trickiest one for us, life. I have a very full-time, busy job as a director of sport in an international school. Mary's the head teacher in that school. We really struggle with our training. And that might look differently for other people. It might be children, it might be other jobs, but definitely for us, our life and our jobs mean that our training can be hampered sometimes. So it's gonna have to go down here. And of course, finally, as if I even need to say it, your current fitness levels are key to this, because even if you've run previous marathons or long distances, it doesn't necessarily mean that you can still do that now if you've had some time away from running, whether you've been injured or whether you just stopped training and you're coming back into it. For example, for us right now, we've just come off of a marathon block. We could probably jump into quite tasty volumes. Definitely don't want to be doing that. You base your volume not on what you have done in the past, but where you're at right now. Current fitness. Alright, I feel pretty confident with the current fitness levels, so they're definitely going to go up this end. I always try and keep myself at least half marathon ready so I could do one if I see one and I want to do one. And it's also a very good platform to jump off onto marathon training. So, in terms of current fitness levels, for me, it's up this end of the spectrum. As a balanced whole, after you've gone through these 8 things, I can see I can skew my training slightly towards more volume, but not all the way. If everything was here, I could be on the highest end of the volume continuum, if you want to call it, but I can certainly be up there. If I was down here, I'd have to go to lower volume training. So now you know the why and the how, you need to know the what, as in what volume should you be doing, or at least a kind of bandwidth of volume for the distances that you're training for. And we're going to run through them on our run in about 46-degree heat, right?
It's so hot.
It is so hot. Let's go.
Do you like our Boston?
Oh, Boston tops. Haha.
Okay, before I give you the numbers, 2 things to remember. The first thing is that you should have already done your kind of 8 reasons and put them on your continuum so that you know, if you get injured more often than not, or if you're a little bit older, then maybe you're on the lower end of the numbers that I'm going to give you, or if everything is sat at the high end, brilliant, go towards the high end. And the second thing is, these numbers are just a guide. They are by no means hard and fast. Some people run way more, some people run way less. Just trying to help you out, or help people that want to know how much they should run, make a decision. So let's start with the really newer runners among us. Maybe you've gone through the couch to 5k, you've got to 5k's, and you're wondering then how much distance you want to cover each week. I would say you want to be somewhere between 10 and 20 kilometers. That will do you quite nicely, and you can split that over 3 or 4 runs.
And a typical distance for people who are training towards 5k, and this is not a first time 5k, this is improving your 5k. Typical distance would be between 20 and 40 kilometers per week.
But remember, as with all of these, it doesn't mean you can't be under 20 or above 40. That's just typical. And then 10k, I would say somewhere in the 30 to 50 kilometer region per week. Just while we stop so Mary can do her shoelace up, I might as well give you the half marathon typical distances. And they're anywhere between 50 and 70 kilometers a week. But again, not limited to, it's just the typicals. You done your shoelace up?
I've done it, yeah.
Okay.
And finally, marathon distances, or at least typical ones, would be 55 to 95 kilometers. But just bearing in mind, we only ever got to 90 on our maximum week, so you've got to find what works for you.
Because we weren't at the high end of our scale, so we knew what our body was capable of.
Yeah.
Just. And here's the thing about this video and the quality over quantity kind of issue, is that you can't just chuck volume at your running journey in the same way that you can't really just go hard and hope that that's quality and that's as good as it gets. So these parameters that we're giving you are so that you can make an informed decision and mix quality and quantity together. And who says good quantity, high volume isn't quality when you're trying to add an aerobic base underneath? I mean, there's a lot to think about, right? But hopefully this has given you some tools to make better decisions.
I'm hoping this video has brought you some value, because if it has, then you might consider subscribing to the channel. And if you liked it, then probably check this video out as well, which is a video I made a little while ago about how many days per week you should run, with a handy flowchart to help you decide. I need to go and shave and sleep, I'm gonna be honest. Thanks for watching, see you Sunday.